Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Pop Go the Writers.
I blew it again.
You did. It's just it's a good
Yeah, I
pop.
don't know. And I did it very successfully before it became a thing.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, now that's expected. But how you doing today, Paul? I hear you've been working a lot.
I have been working a lot. I'm very tired, and I need to finish a script up for some fine folks, and it is proving more difficult than usual on account of, I think, the whole exhaustion thing. But I am going off to Baltimore for the Comic-Con
Nice.
in a few short days. So I'm pretty excited about that. Any good
Cool.
stuff going on with you?
Dealt with the DC fandom yesterday, watching it for to do some coverage, and then went to a cat's birthday party.
And you don't mean that in the term of like a hep cat.
No, it was the first birthday party of Lisa's cat Pumpkin, and it was actually a lot of fun because it wasn't that much of a cat birthday party, but the cat had gifts, and then we all had steak, and then root beer floats, and it was actually rather nice. So
Yeah, very good.
yeah. So, but yeah, I'm just been kind of burning the candle at three ends lately, so a little on the tired side, but. Tonight,
It's when you start burning it in the middle that causes the problems.
Yeah, that's the third end.
Yeah,
because that ends up making a fourth end if you do it right.
Yeah.
So, thought we'd take a break from covering all the stuff going on TV right now because, well, there's no new Marvel or DC or Star Wars. And where we could cover something like Only Murders in the Building, there's only one episode left. So we might as well cover it once the last episode comes up and we find out who the killer really is. Though I have to say, Jane Lynch as Steve Martin's stunt double was quite inspired.
Wow. I was just like, oh my God, that's Jane Lynch.
Now, I would have gone with Patrick Stewart because facially, Stewart and Steve Martin are very similar.
Okay.
Like if you put your thumb over Steve Martin's head, he looks like Patrick Stewart. But yeah, no, they went with Jane Lynch, and I thought that was really well done. So I'm looking forward to the finale.
Yeah.
We have our bet who it is. And now we're just going to wait and see.
Yeah.
But what we were thinking is last week, I threw this at Paul. I said, why don't we both pick 5 movies that we really love and that other people may not know of that well? And Paul, you keep freezing. It's kind of weird. So I had Paul send me his list, and Paul wanted me to send him my list. So we have Paul's list, and then I've, of course, changed my list since Paul and I talked.
No.
So some of this will be a surprise to Paul. But what we're going to do is
almost everything is a surprise to me, really.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to bounce back and forth with our 5 each. And then I've got a couple backups in case we don't fill up the full 90 minutes. But if you were watching and you got some movies you'd like to throw in, throw them in the chat. Tell us the movies you love that you don't think have gotten the proper due, or maybe have kind of fallen to the wayside over the years. That people aren't talking about as much. So, Paul, you want to go first or second?
I'll go second because I'm curious as to whether you've changed what you changed and what to.
Okay. Well, like I said, we'll go back and forth. So I'll go first. You'll do one. We'll do a serpentine pattern through our.
Yes. Or maybe even a double helix because we probably know a little bit about.
Oh yeah. I'd be surprised if you weren't aware of all the movies that I'm bringing up, but this one here, this is something I rewatched recently. Hands down, it is my favorite Western of all time. It has got probably one of the best cast of characters you could have in a movie, because it was all at a time when none of them were huge stars. So you could get them all into one movie. And the movie itself is Silverado. All right. Silverado, it's written and directed by Lawrence Kasdan. His brother Mark Kasdan helped write the script. And the synopsis for this is the most ridiculous synopsis ever. It says, a misfit bunch of friends come together to right the injustices which exist in a small town. And that is the worst synopsis for this movie I've ever heard, because it is so much more than that. You've got this, it's got the classic tropes of the heroes gathering together and then heading into the small town. I mean, it does have a lot of the basic Western tropes, but it does it in such a fun way. And I think the bottom line is it is a classic Western, but it's also a fun Western. This was coming out around the same time as stuff like Unforgiven, that was really changing the Western genre. And don't get me wrong, Unforgiven was an amazing movie, but it was also a much more dark and gritty movie, where this feels more to me like the classic Westerns, the John Wayne Westerns, the stuff like that.
Boy, I know some Western fans that would come after you for that, but...
What do you mean?
Oh, they like some classic Western fans, like, oh, Silverado is the worst. Why? It's got these guys in it, and they're kind of like having fun and stuff.
Yeah, they're on horses, they're shooting guns, there's good guys, there's bad guys, there's stunts. It's a Western,
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's moral ambiguity even.
That's right.
I mean, Peyton certainly, Peyton, you're not quite sure which way he's going to go.
Right. And a lot of them you're not sure. I mean, they all, Jake starts with getting broken out of jail.
Yeah.
So
that's what I told them. Sorry. I'm like, this is your movie, so I'll back off.
Well, that's my point, is it's such a fun, good movie that if you watched it, you love it, is my thought on it. I don't know anybody. There are certain movies that I've come across that everybody I've talked to about it have loved it if they've seen it. Another one, the two others that were on my list that I've taken off, and unless we run out of time, Mike, but Princess Bride is one of those that I think everybody who's seen it loves it. And Young Frankenstein are both just amazing movies that people all seem to love when they've seen it. I think Silverado falls in that category too. So it's either you love it or you haven't seen it yet. Now let's talk about the cast here. You got your four main. The whole movie starts off with this one guy off in the middle of nowhere, and he gets attacked by in the middle of the night. A couple gunmen come in, and he fights them off, and he gets one of their horses and has the brand on the horse so he can try to figure out who's attacked him. And this is Emmett, and Emmett is played by Scott Glenn. Now, Scott Glenn, you've probably seen in a bunch of movies. You've seen him on the Daredevil, the Netflix series as Stick. He was in The Right Stuff. I mean, he's just been in a ton of stuff. He's a great actor.
He did Silverado not long after The Right Stuff, if I'm remembering correctly.
It's possible.
And it's like, it was an interesting, either way it went, it was an interesting choice. It was, yeah.
And so now he's got a mission. He's supposed to swing by this small town, pick up his brother, Jake, played by a very young Kevin Costner. Because this movie was from 1985. Okay, Kevin Costner really hadn't done a lot at that point. This is before Dances with Wolves and all that other stuff. This is early Kevin Costner.
Yeah, so, the only earlier thing I remember was the part that was cut out
of Big Chill.
Of the Big Chill, yeah.
Right, and that's why he got this role, because I thought Kasdan or something was part of the Big Chill.
Yeah, I think there was some kind of connection where they're like, "Oh, this kid's good. We
Yeah.
should."
Yeah. So, and then he went on to do like No Way Out and all these other movies, and eventually, well, so that's the basic story for Emmett and Jake. Emmett is going to go get his brother Jake in this other town, and then they're going to go out to Silverado to see their sister and their family before heading out to parts unknown, California.
California.
Yeah. And Emmett's actually been in jail for murder or something.
Yeah, supposedly murder. Although he felt it was self-defense, but it was a land baron that he.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, along the way, he finds this guy in the middle of the desert in his underwear, laid out, left to die. This is Peyton, and Peyton is played by Kevin Kline. And Kline was probably more popular at this point. Had also played in The Big Chill.
Yeah.
But, he
was not cut.
Right.
Yeah.
Was not cut from The Big Chill. And Peyton, Emmett's a good guy. So he's got this second horse with the brand on it that he's going to use to figure out who attacked him. So he puts Peyton up on that, and they ride into this small town. And eventually he sees someone who has his horse. And part of the story then is Kevin Kline had started riding with this group of people, and they basically ambushed him or,
stole a gun on him in the middle of the desert.
Stole his stuff, left him for dead. Well, part of it is him reclaiming his stuff. He really loves his horse, and he loves his hat and the sweet 6-gun rig he's got. And
please don't tell me you're tickling the ivory handle of my 6-gun.
Yeah. So,
or my favorite Colt. That was it. Yeah.
Yeah. So poor Peyton is getting all this stuff back and basically getting Emmett in trouble every time he does it. And they're traveling to meet Jake. And at one point they go to this small town where they're in the bar. I mean, he gets his horse back first. Emmett stakes him for a new outfit. He's got this crappy old gun, but it's all this stuff going on. But as he's building it back, we get to the point where they get to this small town that's run by Sheriff Langston. And Langston is a no-nonsense type of guy. So, of course...
what's all this then?
Yes. If you're casting somebody to be absolutely no-nonsense, you, of course, go to John Cleese of Monty Python.
Yeah.
Because that's who I think of when it's no-nonsense. And we see this scene where this character, Mal, comes into the bar. He's been riding all this time. He's heading off to go back home from Chicago to Silverado because his parents need him. And all he wants to do is come in and get a drink and a bed. And because he's black, none of that's going to go well. This is the Old West. And this is played by Danny Glover. And I believe this is before he was too old for everything.
Yeah.
Well, and they end up making friends with him by standing up for him when everything goes bad and the sheriff comes in. And then we find out that Jake is in town and he's been arrested. And that's Kevin Costner's character. And he kissed a girl and it got into a gunfight. And so this is all the start of it before you ever even get to Silverado. There is all this story that goes on. They have to bust Jake out. Just Mal ends up coming to help them. And you end up with these 4 cowboys together. You've got, Mal is very much the old school farmer type, but can shoot from with this long rifle,
Dark's rifle.
Yeah. Emmett's more of he's more of the leader type, and Peyton's more of the con man grifter type, and Jake is the young gun, and it's your classic characters. They end up helping a wagon train who's also headed to Silverado. And that's got Rosanna Arquette on it. So you've got now a love interest but we're just not sure for which character she's going to be a love interest for. And as we get to town, you get all these other characters, these other bad guys and stuff. And it starts, when he gets to town, everything is, it's a corrupt town, is a good way to put it.
Well, yeah, because they meet, along the way, they meet Payton's old friends.
Yeah. Brian Dennehy is led by that. And then, what's the name of the kid that's
Jeff?
Jeff
Fate.
Yeah, so those two of our bad guys. And then as we get to town, there's a few more. Jeff Goldblum is in this.
Who suddenly makes you not think that Payton is quite the slick huckster.
Yeah.
Jeff Goldblum is like the slimy gambler guy.
Yes. And then it's not Helen Hunt. Linda Hunt. Linda Hunt plays the barkeep, and she's kind of Payton's weakness. There's this thing about Payton that he always falls in love with something, or he becomes protective of something. And in the backstories that they tell about him, it's a dog, and how he turns against his crew because of a dog. Yeah. And in this case, it's Linda Hunt, and they use her against him. I mean, there's just so many great scenes in this movie. And it all builds to this great climax where each of the heroes has its own villain they're fighting against. And it really is just such a fun, good movie. Brian, I agree. John Cleese is underrated in more serious roles, but John Cleese is just underrated, period. I mean, you look at A Fish Called Wanda, his time on Cheers. I mean, the guy is just a brilliant actor. So... But yeah, so Silverado is definitely one of mine that people should watch. If you have not seen this movie, you should watch this movie. It is just this beautiful classic Western. The scenery is gorgeous. The shots are wonderful, but the story is so much fun. It's even got... go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, it's a Western even for people who don't really like Westerns.
Yeah. And other cast members pop up. Earl Hindman. The next door neighbor on Tool Time,
Home Improvement.
Yeah. He's Emmett's brother-in-law, and it's this great cast. You see Jeff Goldblum as a bad guy. We don't get to see a whole lot of Jeff Goldblum as a bad guy.
Yeah,
and
the lines, the lines are just so. I like when the posse is chasing down Danny Glover, and he shoots at the horse's hooves, and then he shoots I think it was the hat
off John Cleese.
And
you idiot, he's hit everything he's aimed for.
Yes, he's like, he ain't a very good shot. He's hit everything it's hit. But your jurisdiction doesn't end up until those rocks. Today, my jurisdiction ends here. Yes. Pick up my hat.
Yes.
And one of my all-time favorite lines, delivered by Danny Glover. Do you know which one it is?
Oh, what? Which one?
Now, I don't want to kill you, and you don't want to be dead.
Yes. Yes.
I quote that one still, which disquiets people.
I wonder why. All right, we've just spent the first 15 minutes of the show or more on Silverado, so let's go ahead and jump to yours.
Okay, well, I'm gonna another. It's kind of a feel good movie, but a stellar cast. It's called My Favorite Year, and it's loosely based on Sid Caesar's My Show of Shows, about a young writer in New York who starts writing for this the King Kaiser Hour, and the weekend it's the writing for this the King Kaiser Hour. I'm getting feedback from you.
Taken care of.
Okay. So he he loves movies, and his favorite hero is this Errol Flynnish guy called Alan Swan, played by Peter O'Toole, who's going to be a guest on the show. And he argues, the guy shows up dead drunk, and he argues for giving the guy a shot. So he's put in charge of keeping him sober and getting him to rehearsals and the final show. And Peter O'Toole's not having much of any of it. He's just, he's drunk most of the time. Very amusing when he's drunk, but still drunk most of the time. And Mark Lynn Baker, who went on to play Cousin Larry on Perfect Strangers. It was introducing Mark Lynn Baker. He as Benji Stone, this young writer who is trying to woo a girl, part of the show, and not having much luck. The writer's room that Bill Macy. Oh shoot, I'm gonna forget the other names of the. Sorry, I lost it.
Basil Hoffman.
Yes.
The guy that never laughs.
Yes, and I'm trying to remember the actress's name.
Annie DeSilvo.
Annie DeSilvo. Yes. That the actress's name, or is that the character's?
I think the character is Alice Miller.
Yes, you're right. Because I heard Bill Macy going, Alice.
Yeah.
But they make you believe that they're a comedy writer.
Yeah.
The way the movie is done, you actually believe they're comedy writers. And then Joseph Bologna as King Kaiser.
Yeah, brilliant.
He's hilarious. But so eventually Alan Swan, who is constantly letting down Benji Stone, helps him get the girl, and is revealed that he had a kid who he hasn't seen in years, and this is part of why his drinking is basically kind of self-loathing for what he's let himself been turned into. He doesn't really he feels like his life is dictated by other people. Which we then learn the IRS is basically making him do the show because he owes back taxes. It's just it's heartrending. It's funny, fantastic cast. You will never tear up at the word porthole like you do in this movie. And Benji is growing up along the way, learning to be an adult as opposed to a kid in a men's suit.
Yeah. Now, one of the producers on there, he's uncredited, but one of the producers of this, of course, is Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
Who worked on your show of shows. Right. So, some of his stuff came into the story too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and interestingly to me, they later did a similar show called Laughter on the 23rd Floor.
That was from Neil Simon's point of view.
From Neil Simon's point of view. And Mark Lynn Baker played the older, right? He played the head writer in that. So he went from the kid to 20 years later, I think.
As I understand it, this is supposed to be he's supposed to be playing the young Mel Brooks dealing with Errol Flynn when Errol Flynn was on the show of shows.
Now, see, I had never heard that Flynn was actually on the show, but
that's what I had picked up from it.
Yeah.
But also,
it's just,
I was going to say, don't forget who the director is on this.
Oh, yeah.
Richard Benjamin, who's a great comedic actor himself. Love at First Slice. He was also good in Westworld. I mean, I don't
know. He's a little quirky. quirky.
Oh, yeah, Quark.
First thing I ever saw Richard Benjamin in actually was Quark, which was about a group of space garbage men flying around on a garbage scow, basically.
Yeah.
But and then he was in was it Dracula Dead and Loving It? No, it was Love at First Bite.
Yeah, Love at First Bite. Yeah.
With George Hamilton as Dracula.
Yes. Anytime people post on Facebook all the time, who's your favorite Dracula? And they're like, it's
Bela Lugosi or Christopher Lee.
Or Gary Oldman. And I always post George Hamilton.
Yeah.
Every time, George Hamilton.
Mr. Burns. Mr. Burns is my favorite track.
Yeah. I was called a black chicken.
Yeah. There was
two other movies that probably should have made this list and won't. Love at First Bite and Zorro the Gay Blade.
Do you see the sign? See, it is a number 2. No, it is a Z. If you say so, senor, but it looks like a number 2.
My daughter is in school. They taught her that is a number 2.
No, it's a Z.
And a vegetable.
But yeah, if you're there's a wonderful acting by Selma Diamond in My Favorite Year. Some witty banter between her and Peter O'Toole. If you have ever heard anybody say, "I'm not an actor, I'm a movie star," which that is from My Favorite Year. Yeah. And it's kind of a spoiler, but it still works even if you know it's coming.
Yeah, and that climactic ending scene, that fight scene, is so good. It's so good.
And just the voiceover, over it is just it's a lot of people don't like voiceover narration. I thought they did it really well in this, where he only brings it in sort of when it's going to emphasize a point.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's pop over. I could wax poetic and nostalgic about My Favorite Year forever. But why don't we bop on to second choice?
All right. My second choice. Which one do we want to go with? All right. I'm going to go with one of my favorite mysteries of all time. We're going to get a little darker here. But it's a movie called Dead Again. And it's from Kenneth Branagh. He's the director of it. He's the star of it. It's written by Scott Frank. And the basic setup for it is Branagh plays a guy named Mike Church. And he's a Los Angeles private detective who specializes in finding missing people. Now, he takes on this case of a mute woman named Grace, who's played by Emma Thompson, who's his wife at the time. I don't think they're married.
No, they're not.
Okay. And she's suffering from total amnesia, so she can't speak, she can't talk, and she doesn't even know her name. Now, she keeps having these nightmares that this is where it gets really interesting. She has these nightmares where she's a pianist named Margaret Strauss, and she plays the character in their dreams, and she's murdered by her husband, Roman, played by Kenneth Branagh. And this all takes place in 1949. And what we start figuring out is those are real people. And she's dreaming about these real people and this real murder mystery that took place in 1949. And, so Branagh's trying, Mike Church is trying to figure out how this is all connected. He ends up getting help from this really weird, I don't want to call him a psychologist, an antiquarian. I don't know what to call him, but it's Dr. Cozy Carlyle, and it's played by Robin Williams. And he's basically a hypnotist.
Wow. I had forgotten that.
I know. And he curses a lot too. And so Robin Williams is helping her do these hypnosis and past life regressions, trying to figure out where this is all connected. But they also get involved with the cop who was originally investigating the crime back then, played by Andy Garcia. So we get to see him in 1949 when he's young, and then we see him older in, I guess this was an 80s movie, 90s?
Yeah, 80s or early 90s.
1991, yeah. And Garcia plays him where he's in a rest home, and he's been a smoker his whole life, so he has like the tracheotomy thing with the little hole in his throat.
Yeah.
And he even smokes through that at one point, which is creepy as hell. Other people who pop up in this movie, Wayne Knight plays Church's best friend and helps him out and stuff. But one of the best characters in this has to be Franklin Madsen, who was basically this young stuttering boy when he was a kid. And then as an adult, I think I'm kind of spoiling stuff, but Derek Jacobi plays this antique dealer that is trying to help as well. And he is just so good in it. And it's just this really great murder mystery that involves like past life regression. And there are some really, really interesting dark twists. And again, this was my first real introduction to both Kenneth Branagh and Emma Thompson. And they're fantastic. And there's a reason now it's Sir Kenneth Branagh and Dame Emma Thompson. They are both wonderful and both went on to be a part of the Harry Potter universe. But I always thought that was interesting that they both ended up in there.
Well, and what big name English actor didn't?
Sean Connery.
Aye, Scottish.
Oh. Michael Caine.
Good point.
Yeah. Yep, Andrew. Robin Williams' performance in this was just wonderful. He really was good in this, and it just so unique because this was at a point where we weren't used to him being a more dramatic actor. I think this might have been around Good Morning Vietnam, but even that he played comedic and serious. So this was his first true serious thing that I had seen him in. And like I said, it's such a good murder mystery, and the twist, it really gets you. And I don't want to solve it. I do. I tend to solve murder mysteries all the time. But when I don't, like Knives Out got me. That's why I'm a big fan of Knives Out. Murder on the Orient Express, the recent one, also with Kenneth Branagh. I already knew the ending, but I didn't care at that point because the story was told so well. And I'm looking forward to Death on the Nile. But this is just such a really good murder mystery. And if you haven't seen it, one of my favorite takes on this was from my brother, who I normally don't associate. He's not much of a movie guy. He and his buddy sat down, watched it, got to the end, went, "What the hell?" Rewound it to the beginning and watched it again.
Oh, nice. That is good. You've done good work.
Yes.
The writer and director did, and cast, and everybody did good work when somebody's like, wait a second, and can watch it a second time through. People always say they're going to do that. Well, I got to watch that again and see about this. And then they almost never do.
Right. But to do it at that moment, just rewind it. We're going to watch this again. We obviously missed something. It was their attitude. But no, one of my favorite mysteries of all time. So, all right, Mr. Story, let's bounce back to you.
Well, I'm going to continue in your theme for a movie that is beloved and famous, and yet I bet you a lot of people who know of it have never actually seen it. It is the Maltese Falcon, and it is such a fantastic movie. It is this established Bogart as the private eye archetype. in film, but it comes from Dashiell Hammett, who is a real life private eye before he ever became a writer. And that was one of the reasons his stuff tended to feel a little more grounded. I'm trying to remember the quote. I believe it was from Chandler, who said that that Hammett took murder out of the bishop's rose garden and give it back to people who are really good at it. It's got in the movie, well, legend has it, by the way, John Huston, legendary director, asked his secretary to summarize the movie over the weekend. So he goes off on his weekend. He comes back. She's got it, and supposedly her summary was so good it was basically the script that she had done so well. Now I think that she then worked with a screenwriter, but it was so well that she hit all the points and kind of gave it the pace. There are characters in it that you kind of know, even if you don't know. There's Elijah Cook Jr., a very young Elijah Cook Jr., as the Gunsel Wilmer. Now, people read the book and saw the movie and they thought, oh, Gunsel, it's got gun in it. It must mean some young gun. That is not what Gunsel means. It's a slang term for, I guess, what people sometimes call like a rent boy or nowadays. A young gay guy who is kind of subservient to / under the thumb of an older gentleman. Casper Gutman, played by Sidney Greenstreet, who is kind of the archetypal big
Nero Wolfe. He plays Nero Wolfe. Yeah. But he's this big, heavy-set guy who does not like to move very much, and as this, you've seen, like, everybody's seen versions of him in like cartoons and things. He is a talker. He loves hearing himself talk, but he is not afraid to send people out who do some serious damage. Peter Lorre as now I'm forgetting the character's name, but this very weasely guy who plays like this, yes. Mr. Spade, you must help me with this. And good Lord, I'm forgetting the name of the actress who played Bridget O'Shaughnessy, the femme fatale. But it's just a spectacular cast. It's shot wonderfully, as directed wonderfully, as you would expect from John Huston, and the patter. That's the thing I love about old private eye noir movies, is the characters, kind of like watching Aaron Sorkin. Everybody's smarter than they have a right to be. Yeah, Mary Astor played Bridget, and Peter Lorre played Joel Cairo.
Yes, Cairo. And it set so many of the archetypes that we now think of as, them as cliches, but they weren't cliches when Hammett did it.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic movie. There's the Maltese Falcon is this sort of almost typifies, although it's a real object, it almost typifies the Hitchcock definition of a MacGuffin, which is something that drives the plot, but what it is isn't really important. It's all the character interactions that really matter. Hammett Spade is hired to for different reasons at different points, but his real driving force is that in the midst of at the beginning, his partner, who he doesn't particularly like in the detective agency, is killed. And his driving force is when your partner's killed, you do something about it. You don't have to like him, but he's your partner, and you have to do something about it. It's the definition of hard boiled.
Yeah.
Spade is just like Spade is so hard boiled you could throw him up against a wall and the wall would crack.
You mentioned, I mean, John Huston directed this, and it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
But you mentioned Hitchcock, and my God, could you imagine how Hitchcock would have done this film?
I cannot. It surpasses my ability to imagine.
Oh, because I think it's the 39 Steps and some of the other ones he did.
Yeah.
Oh, that could have been fun. Oh, my God.
Yeah. I tell you, though, one of the things I love about the Maltese Falcon is people are always saying, oh, I hate remakes. Why is Hollywood always doing remakes? I hate remakes. Why don't they get something version of Maltese Falcon?
You skipped there. You said what?
Third version of the Maltese Falcon was the one that we know these days. There was one, Satan loves a lady or something like that. And because there's a line in the book about how Sam Spade's face is made up of these kind of V shapes, rather like a blonde Satan. And it's a remake. And thank goodness that they didn't quit it too.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think that's enough for me.
All right.
What about your second one?
My third.
Yes, you're right, because you started.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking at the top of the list and thinking Silverado, which could have been one of mine.
We're going to go stay in the detective field.
Ooh.
This is one of probably the most underrated detective stories. And for me, a great detective is a brilliant mind that is flawed in many other ways to make him human. Mm-hmm. It's why, Hercule Poirot has his OCD. It's why Monk has his issues. It's why Sherlock Holmes has his drug problem. Also just his personality problem, really. Yeah. Well, this is as about a modern take on Sherlock Holmes as you can get, but add in a little bit of twist. And ironically, it's from another Kasdan, but this is Jake Kasdan. And Jake wrote and directed it, and the movie is called The Zero Effect, or just Zero Effect. And the tagline is the world's most private detective. And what it is Bill Pullman plays Daryl Zero, who is this brilliant detective, but he is about as eccentric as you can get. What's a good way to do it? I mean, basically, if he doesn't have a case, he is an absolute terror to his poor assistant because he's overthinking things. He's constantly just, God, I don't even know how to describe how screwed up this guy is when he's not on a case. It's like every emotional and just a wreck. He never gets dressed. He just stays in his bathrobe and he'll curl up in the corner for days. And then he gets a case and he's on. Now, his assistant is played by Ben Stiller. And this was an early role for Stiller. But the case is he and his assistant get involved. They tend to do these impossible crimes. And that's the thing about him is he won't take on just mundane cases. They have to be impossible and the police can't solve them. So he gets involved in this case that he must find out who's blackmailing a rich executive played by Ryan O'Neal.
Interesting.
But the client won't tell him why he's being blackmailed or what it's about. And the problem with the case is it involves this young girl named Gloria, Kim Dickens, and Daryl has no personal skills, anything like that. But he ends up getting close to Gloria, played by Kim Dickens, and she's just as quirky as he is. So there's a lot of humor in it, but there's also this really good mystery going on. And yeah, I don't want to get too much into it because, like I said, it's an interesting twist on the mystery. But and Jake Kasdan wrote this specifically for Bill Pullman, so this wasn't going to go with any other actor. This was made for Pullman after they had worked together on The Accidental Tourist. So, because his dad had done, Lawrence Kasdan, his dad, who did Silverado, did The Accidental Tourist. But the movie itself is it's quirky. It's Sherlock Holmes done in modern day from the sense of what we consider problems in now. So it's like half Sherlock Holmes, half Monk put together is a good way to put it, but with a really good underlying mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's one of those characters that it's like if I could ever get into a room with Jake Kasdan, I'd be like, look, can I just start writing some further adventures of Daryl Zero? Do some comics of him, maybe do a TV series. So this character there should be more because there's just so much fun. And Ben Stiller, the Arlo character, Steve Arlo is supposed to be a bit like Watson, but he's not. He hates Daryl Zero. He wants to quit. He doesn't want to put up with any of this stuff. His girlfriend is constantly telling him to quit. And then he'll be like, well, I would, but he's in the middle of this case, and I've got to help him on this one case. And then after that, I'll quit because he's a horrible boss. And it's just a very entertaining movie. But very, so it's in that vein of these great detective series, but it's also quirky as hell. So it's a little different twist. And again, Monk's OCD and all of those problems that he has are probably closer to Daryl Zero, but Daryl is much more Sherlock Holmes than Monk was.
Mm.
So, and also, he does all the disguises and all those things, but they're not nearly as... those things where they say, how I think I look, how I really look, and it's the two photos, and they're very different. One's like Jason Momoa, and one's like this really sad-looking guy. It's Sherlock, how we think Sherlock Holmes look and how he really is, kind of thing. So it's just a fun movie. Like I said, it's a good mystery. It's good to see Ryan O'Neal in something, especially in a different role for him. So Zero Effect.
And now that is one I have not seen, but it's on my list now. I was going to try and track it down and watch it, but I was working today and did not have time at the shop, ye old shoppy.
All right, sir, your third.
I think for my third, I am going to jump away from the detective genre and hop right into the quirky, unusual, sometimes unsettling world of Bill Forsyth with a movie called Local Hero.
Okay.
Local Hero is about a Texas oil man who is sent by the owner of the company, played by Burt Lancaster, just in a kind of loony, free-flowing role. He's fantastic and hilarious, and Burt Lancaster in this. And he sends Peter Riegert, who most people know as Boone from Animal House, off to this little Scottish town, and they're planning to buy out the town and put in a research station and drilling platform. In the northern North Sea. So he doesn't really want to go. He's like, you got to go, and he's picked because his name is McIntyre. Except it's McIntyre because his dad thought that sounded. I think it was his dad, maybe grandfather, thought that sounded better than some big Hungarian name. It was he was not Scottish in the least, and but Burt Lancaster's character thought, oh, you're so fortunate, McIntyre, going back to the old country, and he's so he gets sent out there. He's picked up by a young guy who's the representative of the company there, Peter Capaldi, in a very early role.
Oh, jeez.
Being very, very Scottish, but his name is Donnie Oldson. Because, of course, there was a little bit of sometimes involuntary crisscross between the Norse and the Scottish. And he's just this kind of rambling, pattering, kind of just a very enthusiastic young guy. And we learn along the way, he's like, somebody brings up some language. He says, oh, that's not one of mine. And he's like, wait, how many languages do you speak? He just like starts listing off all these different languages. And you're going like, who is this kid? And they end up in a I'm going to skip over a bit because it's more fun if you know, but they end up in the small town, and he's looking for a man named Urquhart, which is actually pronounced Urquhart. And he goes into the hotel, gets their room, and it's like, I'm looking for Gordon Urquhart. Okay. Oh, okay. Gordon Urquhart. Hotel owner, played by, as most people know him now, Ewan McGregor's uncle. And
Wedge Antilles.
The original Wedge Antilles, yeah. And they check in. He's like, oh, go around back, go up there. That he should be there by then. And by the time Riegert gets to the office, he knocks and says, oh, come in. And it's the hotel owner. He's like, oh yeah, we all wear a lot of hats around here, you know. And it's just this thing where he proceeds to try and persuade the town to sell their land, while kind of falling in love with this weird, quirky, there's this girl with who goes zooming by on a motorbike all the time at ridiculously fast speeds that you got to watch out for. And like everybody in the town is just like they're hearing, they hear it just soon enough to go, oh, wait. Oh, that's Ricky, I think her name was. But, they go to, there's a research facility, and the people at the research facility think that they're going to put up a marine laboratory to research things, and meanwhile they're planning on putting in a oil rig and refinery. Jenny Seagrove plays the lead, one of the scientists, and Danny Oldson falls head over heels for her. And just the cast is delightful, and just this slow thing of this Houston oil man who's like, really, I'm more of a telex guy, we'll just get on the phone and throw some numbers around, and it's like, nope, that's not going to work here. he just kind of gets charmed and sort of like it's almost I would almost think it was part of an inspiration for Northern Exposure.
I can see that. Yeah.
And at one point, like, turns out the beach is owned by this guy who doesn't want to sell, and he at one point makes an offer. He scoops up a hat full of sand and says, "Will you give me $1 for every grain of sand in here?" And like, I don't know if I could do that. And he's, you should have gone for it. You can only get like X number of grains of sand in a hat this size. Like, it wouldn't have been that, that bad. And yeah, it's just in the very end, he has to go back home, and he really doesn't want to. But well, now I'm not gonna. There are some weird and almost otherworldly elements to it. But yeah, the chemistry with the whole cast is phenomenal. Jenny Seagrove, who plays Marina, the marine biologist, and Peter Capaldi are like, just, they're kind of so cute. And yeah, it's an utterly charming movie. And I'm sure it has nothing to do with the fact that Mida came over on the boat as a wee bairn at 3 that I like it so much. But it's delightful. I recommend it highly, and more people should know about it.
All right. That's cool. I have not seen that, but now I want to. So, especially with Peter Capaldi, I think that was good.
It is so weird. They're like, Peter Capaldi is going to be Doctor Who, and I'm like, Dr. Danny?
Okay, let's see. Which one of the two do I want to do? Let's do this one. We're going to be Halloween soon, and I think a good scary movie would be good. This actually comes from, surprisingly, Peter Jackson, because you don't normally think of Peter Jackson for horror movies. But Peter Jackson... I
don't know. Have you seen The Hobbit?
Nice. Peter Jackson had an idea for a movie that was actually going to be part of Tales from the Crypt. You know how they did Bordello of Blood and Demon Knight? Well,
most importantly, Demon Knight.
Yeah. He pitched this as part of that. And the guys behind the Tales from the Crypt went, no, this is too good. You don't need our banner. Just put it out there yourself.
Yeah.
And it is, of course, The Frighteners.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Michael J. Fox, Trini Alvarado, John Astin, Jeffrey Combs, Dee Wallace, Jake Busey, Chi McBride,
yeah.
R. Lee Emery. I mean, this movie is just such a great cast. But there's kind of a tragic backstory to this.
Yeah.
After a car accident, which his wife Deborah was killed, and he was injured, Frank Bannister, that's Michael J. Fox's character, he develops these psychic abilities and allows him to see, hear, and talk with dead people, ghosts. But after he loses his wife, he kind of loses all interest in his normal life. So he gives up his job as an architect. He never finishes their dream home that he had built for them, or was building for them. And he starts basically becoming a con man. He has these ghosts that he befriends. And like I said, Chi McBride and JP, these are the ghosts he normally talks to. He has them go in and haunt a house. And then he goes in and exorcises the demons. It's got, so it's this fake scam that he puts the ghosts in and then he takes them out. Well, and he goes from town to town, does a few here, a few there, and he ends up in this area where, while he's doing this, he sees this ghost as kind of a Grim Reaper looking ghost that's killing people. And they're marking the numbers on the foreheads before each person dies. So he'll see the number on the forehead and he knows that person is done. That person's going to die. So he gets involved. So where he had become a con man, he actually starts caring about these people. Trini Alvarado's character, he kind of falls for. That's Lucy, and it's this really good. I mean, it's a horror movie, but it doesn't really come across like a horror movie. It's as much of an action adventure as that. I mean, Michael J. Fox is trying to help these people, but like I said, it's just a fun movie again. And it's, to me, it's my second favorite Michael J. Fox movie. You know, Secret of My Success, put them aside. It's Back to the Future and then Frighteners. And this was a movie I always hoped there'd be a sequel, because it's such a rich universe they're building. And the ghosts are so much fun that he hangs out with. And Jeffrey Combs plays this weird...
I was just about to say.
Yeah. Yeah, just a weird-ass character. What's his character's name? Milton Dammers.
Yeah, isn't he with the FBI or something?
He's some kind of agent or something, but he's investigating and he's going after Fox's character, or Frank. But yeah, it's a little bit heartbreaking because you have this tragic starting and you do have all these people dying, but you have basically this hero's call for this character who had nothing to live for, and then suddenly finds it in this town and in this girl.
Yeah.
So it is neat to see his character grow. But there's a lot of humorous beats and stuff. It kind of is on level humor-wise as Ghostbusters. I would put it in the same vein as Ghostbusters from both the horror and the comedy level.
Yeah. Yeah, a little more. I think I want to say a little more intense.
Yes,
than Ghostbusters, because it's so personal.
Yeah.
You know, the big finale with Ghostbusters is, you know, can we save New York from the demon? Right. This is very close and personal. He wants to save the girl, if you will. Sorry, I'm an old. I sometimes do that. The woman he is smit with.
Yeah, but this would be a great franchise, and it's a shame that there was never a sequel. Because I mean, the character, the setup, the ghost that he works with, John Astin as the judge is so great. Full on makeup, just looking scary as hell, an old Western judge.
And they did wonderful effects where, like, the ghost, like, I think it was the judge who had to keep popping his jaw back on because it wasn't really. Yeah. Because the ghosts were all in states of decomposition based on when they died, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Chi McBride's character died in the 70s, so he's done up a very 70s looking outfit. Yeah. And this is early for Chi. I don't think he had done a lot at that point.
I think that might be the first thing I saw him in.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love Chi McBride. He's great in everything he does. But yeah, this is so much fun. So. Yeah. All right, Mr. Story, let's go back to you.
Boy, it's funny. You mentioned some movie, and I was like, I'm gonna switch one of my things on the fly to that. But then I lost it. Whichever one you had mentioned, it was something when you were talking about Zero Effect. But I think I'm going to continue with my list as rewritten, since you said my first list was too pedestrian.
You picked Captain America: The First Avenger. I think most people who've watched the show have seen that.
But you said a movie that's not. I think at first you said a movie that's not as appreciated as it should be.
That is how I phrased it. Yes.
And so, but I will go instead to a movie that I think have started getting a little more respect over the years, but when it came out, people were just like, what? And I'm falling back on the Scottish thing again, because it's Mike Myers and Nancy Travis in So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Downheed. Down.
He punts. No. So Mike Myers plays not only a beat poet who may or may not be part owner of a coffee shop. I've heard that, but it's never made clear in the film.
Yeah,
where he does this beat. They have beat poetry nights, and his big
bad.
thing.
He's not good.
Whoa, man, woman, whoa, man, and they did. It's it's crazy, but you've got Mike Myers, Nancy Travers. Mike Myers again as his own father in age makeup. Mm-hmm. He ends up looking a lot like his character from Saturday Night Live. If it's not Scottish, it's crap. And he as Meyer or as the main character, he doesn't have an accent, but he just goes crazy with it as his dad. And his mom is also it's like, oh, I read it in the paper, and he's like, Mom, Weekly World News is not the paper. And he's got a little brother who has a big orange afro. And the family refers to him as Head. So you get great Heed. Yes. You get great moments where Myers as the dad is yelling like, Heed, down, get your noggin out of there. Or Heed, pants, now. Telling him to go grab his pants.
He's an orange on a toothpick.
Yes.
He's got his own solar system.
It's like Sputnik, round but very, very pointy in parts. Oh, that was a bit offsides, wasn't it?
And he's telling all this to a young Anthony LaPaglia.
Oh, that's right, Anthony LaPaglia, as a police detective who's the best friend of Charlie, the Mike Myers character. He said, "Oh, that was offsides, wasn't it? He'll be crying himself to sleep on his great pillow tonight."
His wee little pillow. His big head on his wee little pillow.
But it's just and the whole thing is he always finds something to always finds something to break up a relationship. He starts dating this woman. Oh, and part of his justification is like, did you see there's this story about this Mrs. X who's like a black widow? She marries guys and then kills them. And he and Anthony LaPaglia talk about this, and he's like, Charlie, you're just trying to, find another excuse. But you start to hear about all these guys who have died, and they tie in with some aspect of Nancy Travis. Nancy Travis has a sister played by Amanda Plummer in all her whacked out glory. No one plays wonky like Amanda Plummer.
Yeah.
She was also really fantastic in oh shoot, what was it called? The movie where Viggo Mortensen played Satan. Prophecy.
Wow.
Yep, and guess what just made my last item on my list. I'm going to go for Prophecy instead of Big Trouble in Little China.
Okay.
But so like they go to LaPaglia's boss is played by come on, I almost said Stanley Tucci, but Alan Arkin. And Alan Arkin, like Anthony LaPaglia, wants to be like a renegade cop on TV, and Alan Arkin's captain is like more like, hey, what's bothering you? What can I do for you? You're supposed to chew me out because I did something crazy. Well, and like you're supposed to like tell me the chief wants my badge. It's like, well, we don't really have a chief. We have a panel with a commissioner, and like, see, this is what I'm talking about. Being a cop isn't like what it is on TV. And so as they're going along, like Charlie falls in love with Nancy Travis's character, and they get married, and about the time they get married, Anthony LaPaglia has put together all the stuff and thinks, oh God, she is an axe murderer. Which leads him to commandeer Charles Grodin's car to try and get up to their honeymoon getaway to save him. Hijinks ensue, and Charles Grodin is wonderful as the motorist who's having none of it. I'm a lawyer. I happen to know you can't commandeer my vehicle. But yeah, it's fantastic cast, fantastic performances, wonderful script. It is just fun and funny. There is a mystery to it. They're piecing it together, but just absurd, outrageous, and hilarious. I highly recommend it.
I think you've just made me change my last movie.
Oh, really?
Yes. You said Charles Grodin, and that always makes me think of one particular movie. Now I just got to find it real quick. There it is. Nope, I had it, lost it. There it is. Okay. I was going to do Eddie and the Cruisers, and I thought about Streets of Fire and a bunch of other movies, but with all the political stuff going on, with Ivan Reitman, the Ghostbusters coming back, just right now, this is the perfect movie to talk about. Dave.
Oh.
Another Kevin Kline movie. Kevin Kline plays a lookalike for the current president. He gets booked. He's like a small town guy. He gets booked to pretend to be the president. And he plays this guy named Dave Kovic. And the real president has a stroke and is in a coma. And the people who run the country for the president, because he's not, he's got his Secretary of State, Bob Alexander, played by Frank Langella. He's got his scriptwriter guy, whatever. Kevin Dunn plays Alan Reed. He's got all these other people that work for him, and they want to keep everything moving without announcing that the president's in a coma. So they go get this stand-in guy who looks a lot like him to pretend to be the president. Well, he has to convince the first lady, Ellen Mitchell, who's played by Sigourney Weaver, and she's not buying that he's the president. And it's this big ball that just keeps building and building. But you have this honestly good person dropped in to pretend to be a president who was pretty corrupt, from what we understand. We find out that he's doing a lot of the stuff, and a lot of the stuff that's coming out to light, they're trying to blame on the poor vice president who had nothing to do with it. And that was Vice President Nance, played by Ben Kingsley.
I've seen him in something recently. What was that?
He has a version of Macbeth, you might know.
Oh, that might be it. Or it could have been Shang-Chi, Legend of the Ten Rings.
Yes. But there's so many great characters and actors in this movie. Bonnie Hunt shows up as a White House tour guide.
We're walking,
yes. Oh, look, it's the president. Isn't that wonderful? Please, we're walking. But one of my favorite characters is Charles Grodin, plays Murray Blum. And Murray is Dave's best friend from back home. And he's like a high school accounting teacher or a economics teacher or something like that.
Wasn't it civics?
Could be civics.
Yeah.
And basically what it is there is this program that I think it's the vice or the first lady really wanted. and Dave wanted it to stay in, but the Frank Langella's character of Bob Alexander just wants to cut it out. Well, and he makes this comment of, well, if you could find 100 and whatever a million in the budget, then you can keep your program. And he's telling him off. Well, Dave doesn't see it that way. He calls up this guy from his old hometown, and they bring him up, and they start going through the budget. But he's going through the budget as a normal person, not as a politician. So he's looking at the real numbers and going, wait, why do we have $13 million made to make people feel more confident about a car they've already bought? And that is one of the ones they bring up. And then there's this big meeting with all the chiefs of staff and stuff like that. And they're all in there. And Dave brings this up. He goes, okay, I want to keep this program, but let's see if we can find, and he starts bringing out all this stuff. And the Bob Alexander character is so upset that this is happening, but he can't come out and say it like, hey, you're not the real president. We're running it here.
Shut up. You're an actor.
Yeah. So he has to sit there and take it, but he gives probably the best death stare to ever be on the big screen. There is this look that Frank Langella gives that is just, I'm going to eat your soul.
You know what Dave is, by the way?
What?
Dave is a remake of The Prisoner of Zenda, almost.
Almost.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I'd be surprised if that wasn't part of the inspiration for it, because they have some very close elements, sans, sword fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another actor who really early in his career plays a Secret Service agent is Ving Rhames.
Yep.
And I mean, they spend all the time trying to talk him into wearing sweaters instead of always being in the suit. He's like, "Oh, I think my neck is too big for that." And it's this fun movie, but it's an interesting look at the White House. But it's kind of when it was made back in 93?
93. Yep.
We were a little more naive at that point. We didn't, we had some Reagan stuff going on, but overall we kind of believed the presidency was, they were trying to do good for us. And it's interesting to see the movie and how it ends. The connection between this guy and Sigourney Weaver's character, how that grows through the movie. Ben Kingsley's character. It's just, they're really fun things. And how Bob Alexander gets his in the end. And this big plan to solve all the problems. It's just a lot of fun. I really love that movie. So sorry on the bait and switch on that one, but
I think that's a great one.
Yeah, you mentioned Charles Grodin. That's the first movie I think of him in all the time.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Story, your final one.
Well, I said my final one was going to be The Prophecy.
Uh-huh.
And then which I do really actually enjoy. It's written and I think directed by Russell Mulcahy, who from Highlander, the lead Elias Koteris, Virginia Madsen, with a special appearance by Viggo Mortensen long before Aragorn as Satan, and the really amazing role of Christopher Walken as the angel Gabriel, who is angels are not nice.
No.
And Eric Stoltz is also an angel, but it is a very, very weird, kind of low budget film.
There's like 3 of them, isn't there?
Oh, I think there might be up to 5 now.
Oh, Jesus.
I think they eventually even let Walken go and are just kind of like drifting. Like, this one is Prophecy 3. We told you it was going to happen, or something like that. But I actually think because of the Halloween season, although Prophecy would work for this too, I think I want to go and jump to Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight.
Okay.
Because it I it has it is so much more fun than it has any right to be. Again, it was why they told Jackson, go do this movie on your own. We kind of do schlock on a movie, TV schlock on a movie scale.
Yeah.
But I loved the stars William Sadler, Billy Zane, uh, um, uh, Jada Pinkett before she was Jada Pinkett Smith, CCH Pounder, John, is it John Casimir? What is his? John Cassier. No, that's not the one I'm thinking of. Although John Cassier does the voice of the Crypt Keeper. Thomas Hayden Church is in it, and Charles Fleischer, the voice of
Roger Rabbit.
Roger Rabbit from
Yeah.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
It's this weirdly, this weirdly wonderful cast. Billy Zane in this movie could not find a piece of scenery he did not want to chew. The overall plot is this guy in a big old boat of a 70s car is zooming along a desert highway, and runs out of gas. And he's in the middle of a chase. He runs out of gas. The other car comes up and hits him, and they both explode in a fireball. And you see one guy walk away, and it's Billy Zane, who is driving the second car, who does not seem at all bothered by the fire. Then we see William Sadler, who was driving the first car, had managed to get out, and he is trying to steal a car, gets spotted, and eventually ends up at he gets spotted, runs away. He ends up at a former church that has been turned into a hotel run by CCH Pounder, and Jada Pinkett Smith is on work release from jail to work at the as a cleaning woman and all around helper at the hotel / apartments. A whacked out a mousy postal worker, a prostitute, and Uncle Willie, who is oh God, how do I not remember his name?
IMDb is your friend.
Yeah, I'm on it right now. Dick Miller, who is in so many classic kind of B-level horror films. He did a lot of John Carpenter films. Sadly passed away not too long ago. But the cast is wonderful. The script is more inspired than we have to be. We find out that William Sadler's character is not who he appears to be, because he's actually a soldier from World War I who got this blessing / curse passed along to him in the shape of a key filled with blood, which we eventually find out was originally filled next to a cross with the blood of a carpenter. And it acts as a protective seal. You can use blood out of the key as a protective seal to seal off like an entrance to keep demons out. And the whole thing is Billy Zane's a demon that was after him. He continues trying to tempt people. to let him into this hotel, which has been sealed up as by Breaker, William Sadler character, and he tempts each of the characters, and eventually does get into the hotel. God, Thomas Hayden Church plays this awful slime ball who is just, he's just reprehensible, just a dirtball kind of guy, and he plays it wonderfully. And the only thing I'd seen him in before that was Wings, where he was this kind of nice, not so bright airplane mechanic. Anyway, the long story is that it's just it actually lays out some history of demons, which then gets used by the guys who wrote this, and Reef and Voris, Ethan Reef and Cyrus Voris, reuse some elements of it in a TV show that I dearly love that only did not last long enough, called Brimstone.
Oh, yeah.
Which is also one of the first TV shows I saw where they used like filters to make it was shot in Los Angeles, but they used filters to make it look cold.
That was John Glover as Satan is in Brimstone.
Yes. Yep. And Peter Horton.
Yeah.
Was a cop, came back, was sent by Satan to gather some souls that had escaped from hell.
Oh yeah, I like that show.
Yeah, but the key linking thing was that a demon or an escapee from hell, you had to destroy their eyes, and that sends their soul back to hell.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we got about a minute.
Oh, good Lord. Well, I'll just wrap it up by saying it's schlocky, but it is so fun. I just love it. Holy moly! I did not think that would go.
I know. I had extra movies ready.
Yeah. And we'd swap movies on the fly.
Yep. Which tells me we're going to have to do this again. Because
yes.
we both, and like you, I'm thinking of movies as I'm going, like, oh, we should do The Phantom with Billy Zane, or The Shadow, or I mean, there's some.
Yeah. So.
All right.
Yeah.
We're going to go ahead and wrap this up here, guys. This was a lot of fun talking about some great movies. And we're definitely going to have to do this again.
Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.
Yeah. And I hope you've added some movies to your watch list, because all of these are movies we definitely loved, because you could tell how long we went on talking about them. So we might have to do a bad movie night too. The ones we watched went, no. Like my
Highlander 2 does not exist.
There's a Renegade cut.
Yeah, you keep saying, but the original did so much damage to my psyche.
Yeah. So, all right, folks, thank you very much for joining us. This is Paul. You can find him on Storyville just about everywhere online. He's Storyville everywhere. Me, I'm Dan Wickline on everything. You can find me on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, all of that. We'll be back next week with something new. Maybe we'll talk about some of the DC fandom stuff that dropped. Maybe we'll talk about some more movies. We'll figure it out. But whatever we do, we'll have fun doing it.
Yep.
Everybody have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Good night, everybody.
Good night.